In this section, we'll look at how to compile the contract that we just wrote. In Remix, we have a separate plugin that was installed that acts as a Solidity compiler. You can change the version and that shows you the compiling. It has auto compilation also, right? So here in Solidity, in Truffle, right, we need to write separate commands to compile the contract. Okay. So before that, I want to do something. I'll just go and remove this folder from the workspace, right? Delete these two also, and add the specific folder which I created now to the workspace, so that it's easier for us to look at all of the codes that we are just writing instead of Ethereum Masterclass, right? This one. I'll just add this, right? So only these folders which we have within the project will be visible. Otherwise, it will become difficult to navigate, right? So you can also do the same thing if required. Now, within Ethereum Masterclass, okay, what I'm doing, right, is to write a program, right, or a command as we call it in the command line cases, called as Truffle Compile. Okay. So if you just say Truffle Compile, it is going to go into your contracts folder, take all the migration, sample, whatever Solidity files you have written and compile them. Okay. So if you looked at the Web3 demo, right, and look at call.js, yeah, imagine how much we did to just compile it. Okay. So we first read the files, okay, and then we created this input called as Solidity and sources and everything, settings included. Then we did JSON stringified, solc.compile, JSON parse, etc. This entire step is just done in one command using Truffle, right, which is called as Truffle Compile, right. So just enter and it is going to now download the solc version. If you look at fetching solc version list from solc bin, what is this? It is going to go to Truffle config. Since we have changed the Solidity version, right, it is downloading 0.6.12 for us, and then it will start compiling, right. So it downloaded the compiler and it completed the compilation. So why it went to contracts folder, migrations.sol first, contracts folder, sample.sol second, right. So that is how we created it, and this is a warning which is given, right. I'll show you how to stop this warning also, right. Now artifacts has been returned to users, Raghu, that this build and contracts. What is this build and contracts, right? So here also you can see that 0.6.12 is what it used to compile the contract. So whatever we gave in Truffle config, right, version 0.6.212 worked. Okay, wonderful. Now, if you look at your project, right, previously we had contracts, migrations, test and Truffle config, correct? Now we have a new folder called as build. What is this build? Right. Within build is where you have your JSON files. What is this JSON files? If you go back to your Web3 demo, you can see that it created an output, correct? The output was in a JSON format as we saw, yeah. And within JSON we have contracts, that this we have to add it manually to find the ABI and the bytecode, correct? Which means the output of the Solidity compiler, which gives bytecode, ABI and a lot of other things, is stored in a JSON file, correct? Now this is the JSON file that my compiler has created, migrations.json, sample.json. So the contract that we wrote ourselves is called as sample.json, right? So let me just open this, right? Here you can find that it's a JSON file, correct? And with a lot of information within this, right? It's a huge file with about 700 lines of code for my contract, right? Yours might be completely different. The contract name is called as sample. The ABI of the contract is given here. You can see that inputs are A, B, and the name of the function is sum. And one more function is called as get sum, etc. Right? The bytecode of the contract, metadata of the contract, source map, source, where is the actual, this is the entire contract itself. We did this by saying read file sync, so this has done automatically for us, correct? And you will have license, node type, the nodes that are there, and you can also find multiple details about your contract. In fact, when you deploy, the contract address where it is deployed will be given in here itself. That will look in the deployment section, of course, right? Now, this is what is created as the output from the compiler itself. Okay, so this JSON file is called as an artifact because artifacts are something that proves, or let's say those are the features of something, right? For this particular project, these are the artifacts that have been created. Yeah, so previously, if you again go to this call.js, you can find that we only wanted this ABI and bytecode, but there was a complex process involved in that. But here, since we have it in the JSON, Truffle in fact automatically reads it because it only created that. It knows where all these details are, right? We don't need to do all this difficult stuff of looking at where it is and then calling that, etc., right? Then we need to look at deployment, that we'll see in the next section. But before that, only thing I wanted to show you was how to get rid of this SPDX license identifier, because every time you compile this is coming up. It does not stop the program from working, but I don't want to look at a warning at all, right? So let's look at how to stop this from coming up. Now, to solve the problem of this SPDX license, we'll just go by what it says in the comments, right? So if you look at this, it says SPDX license identifier not provided in the source file. That's fine. Before publishing, consider adding a comment containing SPDX license identifier and your license, right? What does this license mean is that this MIT license and all of these licenses are standards that we will be using, right? If your contract follows a particular standard, for example, OpenZeppelin is a standard which uses MIT license, right? So if you go to spdx.org, you will be able to find the different licenses that we have. You can use any one of those if your contract is following that particular license. Okay, so you can see here that multiple licenses are there. Let me just search for MIT, right? So Apple MIT license, or there's just one MIT license also, this one, right? This is used in most of the libraries. If you want, you can go to that, but make sure you follow all the licensing things. But you know that whatever I have written now is a very basic contract and I don't need to use that. So it is SPDX license identifier unlicensed, right? So let me just take it, let me make it unlicensed. Okay, I'll just close this also. Contracts, sample, and before the program, do a comment and say SPDX license identifier is unlicensed, right? So once you do that, you will say Truffle compile again. Okay, so we'll do it, see if the warning is gone, right? Warning is always irritating whenever it comes to any program, not only Solidity, right? So since it has already downloaded the 0.6.12, right, it can just do the difference. So migrations are already compiled, so you don't need to compile it again. So Truffle is kind of smart in understanding what has been changed and only compiles that. Okay, so now if I open, okay, and you can see that the error is gone now. There is no warning given by that, and sample.json is just the same thing as we saw earlier. Okay, so that is the concept of this SPDX identifier and license. Yeah, that's fine. So now we have cleared that as well. We'll go into the next section where we migrate or deploy this contract.